Good morning, everyone. Hello, good morning. I hope you guys are all doing great today on this beautiful Tuesday. Welcome. My name is Terry Thyssen, and welcome to this month's, July's Urban Updates. So we're gonna get right into it as you guys are finding your way, finding your coffee. So for today's Urban Updates, we've got kind of a lean schedule, but pretty much the same of what we've done before. We're going to start off with a technical topic. We're going to slide into our statewide and regional updates, and then we're going to do some Q&A and looking at partner shares. So if you guys want to get your minds together on any events or things that you want to share out at the end, just so that you know that it's coming. But without any further ado, we're going to go right into the technical topic. We've got Cara Bergschneider coming and talking to us about irrigation water management and small scale resources that you guys have available. So I'll stop my sharing and Cara, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Terry.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Let me get my screen pulled up here. Okay. How's it looking, Terry?
It looks beautiful. I love it.
Okay, great. All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Cara Bergschneider, and I am with NRCS. I am the state urban and small scale conservationist. I also, as Terry said, hope everybody's doing well this morning. And I wanted to touch on a couple of topics today. Both of these topics we have gone over before, but maybe some of our partners haven't heard these topics. And so the first one is going to be on irrigation water management and the template plan that we've put together for small farms and gardens. And then we'll close out with a topic, or I'll close out with a topic that's going to highlight some of the technical resources that we have developed as a team, and then where the trainings on those technical resources are located. So, okay, starting with irrigation water management and the plan that we've put together for small farms and gardens. All right, there we go. I want to first start by saying that this plan was a collaborative effort of a subcommittee that consisted of a lot of different individuals who really put a lot of time, thought, attention, and expertise into the topic. So like so many small scale things that we are creating, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's a collaborative effort, and it is very appreciative. And I think that the products that we are creating are helpful not just for us as conservationists who work with growers, but for the growers themselves. And so a big thank you for this crew. Okay, so the irrigation water management plan. Let's first start by where it's located. And because we do have a lot of partners on this call, I wanted to just quickly bop over to a search browser and show you how to locate the field office technical guide. So NRCS folks, a lot of our partners, this is going to be old hat for you. You know where the field office technical guide is, but I've been surprised as I've talked with people is not everyone is aware of the field office technical guide. So this is where a lot of our resources, NRCS resources, are located. So if you just type in a browser, Field Office Technical Guide, you can also abbreviate it to the FOTG if you're an acronym person, and it'll take you right there. So just click on that. Every state has a Field Office Technical Guide. So we select Indiana, we go. And as you scroll down, you'll see that this field office technical guide consists of 4 sections. And section 4, the practice standards and supporting documents, is what we're going to look at. And irrigation water management is one of our conservation practices. So we have a standard for that. So we're going to look in this area.
Cara, I'm just going to interrupt you for one moment. I think
Yes.
I'm not alone, that I'm still seeing your presentation slide and not actually the
Oh,
web.
oh, thank you. Let's see. Let me stop sharing. I'm so sorry, you all. And share this screen again. And hopefully, how is that, Ellie?
Beautiful.
Okay, sorry
Thank
about that,
you.
everyone. You're welcome, and I apologize. So I'm at the Field Office Technical Guide. I just typed in Field Office Technical Guide, or FOTG, into a browser, and it brings us to this page where you select your state, which I selected Indiana. I scroll down, and there are 5 sections, and I am looking in Section 4, which is our practice standards and supporting documents, going down to the conservation practice standards and supporting documents, and I'm looking for irrigation water management. So this is in alphabetical order, as you can see. And here it is here, irrigation water management. I open that, and then we look on this right-hand side, and we have our standard. And what we're looking for is this irrigation water management plan for small farms and gardens. So that's where this document is located. And just want to make sure that you're seeing my presentation now.
Yes, you're back to your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, great. This is, when you click on that link, this is what the irrigation water management plan looks like. And we're going to go through this in detail. And so why do we need a irrigation water management plan? Well, we are prompted to work on irrigation practices when a grower has an existing system, so they already have to be irrigating, they already have to be watering in some capacity. And there's the opportunity to improve energy or, so it can be one or the other or both, energy and or water efficiency. And so what's an example of this? A grower walks into your office and they say, hey, I am interested in doing some cover crops and a high tunnel, and I hear you guys have mulching, and so you go out, you do a site visit, and you see that they are doing this business here in this picture on the right. So they're using a hose, a sprinkler, and they're watering by hand. This is irrigating. They are irrigating, but they have an opportunity to improve their water efficiency by switching to a different irrigation system. So one of our micro irrigation systems. And so they're interested. You mentioned that there's this opportunity to conserve water, and they're interested. And so the next thing that we have to ask them is how long they have irrigated. So, and this is, of course, if they're working through a program. If you're just giving technical assistance, then you can ignore this step. But if they're interested in getting funding for an irrigation practice, then our program policy says that they have to have been irrigating for 2 of the past 5 years. So they can have been hauling a bucket with water for a year. They can be using this hose and sprinkler for a year over the past 5 years. And just meeting those 2 years, 1 year doing bucket watering, 1 year doing hose and sprinkler funding, so EQIP is our main program, is to schedule any of the following irrigation practices like micro irrigation drip tape, sprinkler system, which are the mini wobblers, an irrigation reservoir, a pumping plant. We have to have an irrigation water management plan. That's required. Management plans. Why create this template and have us do the work as planners and as partners? And the reason why is because we have no TSPs in Indiana to work on irrigation water management design. So that is not an option. And it was important for us to open up these conservation practices for our urban and small scale folks. So what's the benefit of having an irrigation water management plan, aside from the fact that it opens up funding for NRCS conservation practices? What about if they're just interested in getting information? Well, this plan is also really helpful because it gives the grower valuable information on when to water and how much to water. And that is based on their soil, the types of plants they're growing, and the phase that those plants are in. And with this knowledge, that grower can basically grow better plants because those plants have the right amount of water. They don't have too much, they don't have too little. And then we're also having the public benefit of conserving a natural resource, whether that is water or energy. And that, folks, puts money in the pocket of the grower, which is always a good thing. This is what the irrigation water management plan looks like. I've highlighted in here different sections. The orange is when it's referring to sections that give information on how much water to apply. And the blue is referring to sections on when to apply the water. So I'm just going to kind of step through this, this plan. But what I really want to get to, and what I want you all to know that what we're getting to is a data sheet that at the end of this plan, you can fill out with the grower, just entering some really basic information. And that data that you enter is going to give an actual number to the producer of how much water they should apply and at what frequency. So it's going to give them real helpful information. So that's why we're doing this exercise. Aside from the fact that we need these irrigation water management plans for our program. So what we're looking at is an irrigation schedule. And again, all an irrigation schedule is basically two components and the details of those components: when to water and how much water to put on. When we talk about when to water, we can determine that in basically three different ways. We can use sensors, which is wonderful and really easy, but to be quite frank, not a lot of small scale growers use sensors. That tends to be a larger operation use. We can determine when to water based on the appearance and feel of the soil, which a lot of growers do that. Those, like, you can ask them like, hey, how do you know when to turn your water on to irrigate? And they'll say, I'd stick my finger in the ground, or I grab a bunch of soil and I feel it and I know when to water. So that's the appearance and feel method. There's we're going to go through that in a little bit more detail, but yeah, there's more of a process to it and a method than just doing those two things, but it is based on the appearance and feel of the soil. And then the third way is people determine when to water is by monitoring the critical growth stage. So the plant monitoring, what stage of life is that plant in? And then we determine how much water to put on during an irrigation event by looking at the available water holding capacity of the soil. So that's the soil, basically the soil texture. We look at the management allowable depletion, the current soil moisture status, the current crop forage growth stage, and then the distribution uniformity of the irrigation event. We already talked about sensors, very easy to use, but not very common. When we talk about estimating soil moisture by feel and appearance, we actually have documents that were created by NRCS that step producers through how to do this method with great pictures and a flow chart. Extremely easy to follow. So it is, it steps them through of, get a small handful of soil at this depth. And, it's a lot like the feel method if you've done soil texturing out in the field or in a class before. It's very similar, and it steps the grower or yourself, if you're doing this, through that method. We need to look at the crop rooting depth. So how deep are the roots of the crop that you're growing? And this is really important because if any of you have gardened before, you know that when you water lettuce, that's going to be a really shallow rooted plant, and you only need to water down a few inches. If you're watering in a pepper plant that's more deeply rooted, then you know that you need to get that water down to that deeper level in the soil because you have a deeper growing root. This is a nice table that gives some common crops and their rooting depth. So we have shallow rooting depth, which is 6 to 12 inches, a moderate rooting depth, which is 18 to 24 inches, and a deep rooting depth, which is 36 inches. And of course, it's going to take longer to irrigate. It's going to take more time to irrigate if you're watering a deep-rooted crop versus a shallow-rooted crop. Next, we need to consider the available water holding capacity. Again, that's what is the texture of the soil. So if we have a sandy soil, we've probably, hopefully, all been to a beach before. I hope for all of us that we have all been to a beach before. And if you have, then as the waves come in to that sandy beach, then the water doesn't sit there. As soon as that water goes out, it soaks into that sand, and you can walk across it without walking through a puddle. So the soil texture greatly determines how the water infiltrates into the soil, and we need to consider that as far as the water holding capacity goes. So the soil texture determines how fast the water infiltrates into the soil, and then how tightly the water is held in that soil. The plant monitoring or the critical growth stage is important to consider. When a plant is in its critical growth stage, then that is the key time for it to have the adequate amount of water. If a crop has too much or especially too little water during that critical growth stage, then you decrease the quality of that plant. And so basically you won't have as much of a harvest if the plant doesn't receive the adequate amount of water during that critical growth stage. And this is a nice table that shows the critical growth stage for some of our common crops right here at table 2. The management allowable depletion is, it's basically the percent of the water holding capacity of the soil that you can deplete between irrigation events before you start having a negative effect on your crop. So this is a set number. We have averaged that number for our Indiana soil, and this section is not so important for you guys to understand exactly what it is. Just know that this management allowable depletion is different based on the rooting depth of the plants. And when we get to that data sheet, we're going to see a section on management allowable deficiency that's automatically filled in, and that's referring to this part of the plan. We need to consider the application system distribution uniformity. So that is, I think, kind of a confusing title, but in irrigation speak, that is how it's defined. Basically, what that is how consistent is that water getting on the soil? So if you have a drip tape and there's holes in that drip tape at each of the plants, so say you're growing a tomato plant and there's a hole in the drip tape, you turn on the water, that water is going to come out of the hole and it's going to get directly to that tomato plant. That is very uniform watering because you're targeting the plant, the water is going right to that plant. If you have a sprinkler, those lawn sprinklers that kind of do this that we've, all seen or maybe even used, is that can be very inconsistent, and it's going to water the tomato plant, but it's also going to water your walkway. It may water the adjacent plants growing next to it. And so that water is not as uniformly getting to the plant. So we need to consider that. Other factors that we are not required to think about with irrigation, but are really important considerations, is erosion. So is your irrigation, the type of irrigation, the amount of irrigation that you're putting on, the frequency of irrigation, is it going to induce any erosion on the land? That's, of course, part of what we do is we don't ever want to do a conservation practice that's going to do harm to another natural resource. So be aware of erosion potential. What is your water quality? In Indiana, we have a lot of hard water throughout the state, especially if you're using well water, especially. So we need to know the quality of the water. Does it maybe need a filter on it before we're putting it onto the soil and plants? We also should consider mulching as a factor. If we have an exposed soil versus a mulch soil, we know that we're going to have better moisture retention with a mulch soil because we have that barrier between the soil and the atmosphere that keeps that water in. And we also need to consider the water tables. So we do have some high water tables throughout the state, and we don't want to be putting more water on if we already have water that's available to those plants at the water table level. So that is the basics of the irrigation water management plan. If someone would like to, say, apply for EQIP funding for the irrigation water management practice. So they have this plan, but they're like, hey, I see that I can get funding for doing irrigation water management. They can do that, but here among all of us as people who work with growers, I feel like it's really our responsibility to give those growers the heads up that this is one of those practices that would require very intense record keeping. So every time that grower were to irrigate, they would need to record this information. This is what's required this is what's required for that practice. So I know we've all worked with growers that some of them are amazing record keepers. and they enjoy collecting data and they enjoy record keeping, they'd be a good candidate for irrigation water management practice. We also work with those growers that they can't find their cover crop seed tag for the life of them. They're like, oh, I don't keep that stuff, I just pitch it. Maybe somebody that you would want to have that talk with, that this is one of those practices that they'd really need to keep records for. So I wanted to put that out there, that just because somebody has an irrigation water management plan does not mean that they need to do the practice, or that that might be a good fit for them. But they do need this plan in order for us to schedule like the micro irrigation drip tape, or the sprinkler wobbler system, or an irrigation reservoir. Okay, so now we are going to get into the data sheet, which is, I'm just gonna put it out there. This is a lot of information on this sheet. And when we did this training before, I know it was a little overwhelming for folks, because you look at this and it's like, oh man, that's a lot to fill out. We're going to step through this together. And I think that what you'll find is that this is pretty intuitive, and what's not intuitive about this sheet, we can leave blank. It's okay. We can gather that information later. But this is very helpful for a grower. This is the part that a grower can actually get some numbers on how much water they should be applying for their crops. So before we go through that, let's just pull up a real scenario and look at this overview of a farm. So we have two different growing areas on this farm. We've got field 1, which is 0.3 acres. This whole orange outlined area is 0.3 acres. It's pretty flat, so it's not highly erodible land. And we see we've got some high tunnels in here. And then we've got field 2, which is 1/2 an acre, also pretty flat, not highly erodible land. And it is open growing area. And then the blue areas that are highlighted here, so this area in field 2, and this high tunnel in field 1, are areas where the grower is interested in improving their irrigation. So we ask them, well, what are you doing for irrigation currently? And they say, well, we're using this hose that we saw before, this hose and sprinkler to water the area. And we've been doing that for the past 5 years. So right away, we're like, okay, well, gosh, I can think of a few different irrigation practices that would be a priority for us in Indiana, because this is a really inefficient system for water. And they qualify for irrigation practices because for the past 4 years, they've been irrigating. So remember, by policy, they have to have been irrigating 2 of the last 5 years. So they meet that requirement. So first, let's look at field 1 over here. And they are interested in improving the efficiency of their watering system in the high tunnel. It's 2,160 square foot. So that's that kind of typical 72 by 30 foot high tunnel. They have raised beds in there, not permanent. They're just, the mounded raised beds that we see frequently in these small farm operations. And they'd like to improve from that hose and sprinkler watering system to doing micro irrigation. And they'd like to do drip tape and a sprinkler system with the micro wobblers. They want to do both. Can we do both on the same land of these? Can we overlap these 2 practices on the same land? Yes, we absolutely can. And the reason for that is the drip tape, again, is a piece of plastic pipe that has holes punched in, that's delivering water directly to a plant, that is only suitable for certain types of plants. A micro wobbler system is a very efficient sprinkler system, and that is appropriate for other types of plants. So in this high tunnel, they want to grow all sorts of, or they are growing all sorts of different vegetables. They're growing greens, which need an overhead sprinkler system. And they're also growing like things like tomatoes that can't take that sprinkler system on top of their leaves, or else it'll promote disease. So they need more of the drip irrigation. So we have two different needs for that same area, and we can overlap our practices. Okay, in field 2, that's the open area, so no high tunnel. And that is 10,890 square feet that's currently being irrigated, also on those non-framed raised beds. And they're just interested in the sprinkler system or the micro wobblers in that area. The crops that they grow there don't need that drip tape system. Their leaves can get wet and do great with that. So those are our two systems that we're looking at. And just a reminder, in case that these are pulled directly out of that irrigation water management plan. These are pictures that are in here. This is a picture of that drip tape. So you can see it's just a tape that goes on the ground with holes punched in it at the plants. And this is that micro wobbler system. So this is going to kind of shake and wobble, and it's going to throw water over this area. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our irrigation water management plan. So this is the second to last page of the irrigation water management plan. And now that we went through that information, let's start filling this out. We're going to skip over this general information. That's just the participant's name, their farm and track number. If they're going into EQIP, their contract number, and their county. We know how to fill that stuff out. But what we just went over in that past slide is our irrigation history and existing components. So how many existing garden fields do they have? We had 2. Remember, we had that field 1 with the high tunnel and field 2. So we have 2 different fields. And how many systems are they interested in? They're interested in the drip tape, and they're interested in that micro wobbler. So they're interested in 2 different systems. What's the total area? I added that up beforehand. So that was adding those blue shaded areas, and that was 13,050 square foot. If you need to change it to acres, you can, but square foot works. Square foot is what we measured it in. The garden field type. So is this in your typical rows? Is this in beds, either framed or non-framed? Is it a high tunnel, or is it an other system? Well, we have beds, and then we also have a high tunnel. So we'll select both of those. What is our water source? Let me bring this back up. There is a pipe that's running on this property. It's this blue line here, and it's an existing irrigation pipeline, and it's municipal water. So we'll just kind of take note of that. And then we also see that we have electric that's available in this building here. Oops. Oh, sorry, guys. There we go. And so we know that the water source is city or municipal. we would select one of these others if that were the case. And the pressure source is also city municipal. Now it's asking us, what is our operating pressure if it's known? If the grower doesn't know the operating pressure, the PSI of their system, no problem. We can measure that later with a simple gauge. It would literally just take a couple of seconds. A lot of conservation delivery teams do that when they go out to the site to design these systems. So same with livestock. This question is asked with livestock when we're designing pipeline. And so if some growers will know that right off the bat. Typically, it's between 40 and 50 PSI when you're on a municipal system, and they may know, yeah, I run at 55 PSI almost all the time. Others will have no idea. If you know, then enter it in. If not, no problem. Don't get overwhelmed by this. Just leave it blank. Is electricity available on site? That's just a question to ask the grower here. Yes, it is. And then what is the past irrigation history? Well, we know that they watered with a hose and sprinkler for the last 4 years. And that their challenges were time that it took to water and too little or too much water at once. So just something really simple like that. Whatever their history is and whatever any of their issues or challenges are on that site. Okay, so now we get into kind of the plugging in of information that's going to give us some really cool data. We have to know the soil texture. And again, we need to know that because that affects the water holding capacity of the soil. And so let's go back over to the PowerPoint really quick. And however you get your soil information, some people love Web Soil Survey. Some people love to work in Conservation Desktop and pull a soil map from there. However you get your soil information, bring up a soil map and we can see that both of these areas are in this urban land Brady complex. When we click on that to get some more information on that map unit, then we find the typical profile is right here. And we can see between 0 and 9 inches, the typical profile is, and between 9 and 37 inches is a sandy loam texture. Remember that our rooting depth, this table is from the Irrigation Water Management Plan. Our rooting depths are shallow, which are 6 to 12 inches, moderate, 18 to 24 inches, and deep, greater than 36 inches. So in all of these rooting depths, we have a sandy loam. Okay. So it's asking us for our map unit symbol, and that was UDKA. And what is the name of that? That was Urban Land, and it's the Brady Complex. Okay, here at a rooting depth of shallow, average rooting depth for our shallow crop roots of 6 inches, our moderate crop roots of 18 inches, and our deep crop roots of 36 inches, what texture is the average soil profile? And we know for all of those, it's sandy loam. So we'll just click these, autofill. That's the soil texture triangle, 12 textures. So select the one that is appropriate. What are the potential crops that they're going to grow in each season? So in spring, let's say that they're just going to focus on lettuces, spinach, those shallow rooted crops. In summer, they're going to do tomatoes and squash. And in fall, they're going to do some brassicas like broccoli and cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. And in winter, they're going to do, they're going to overwinter some carrots and greens. So we can see that we have, if we go back to that table of rooting depth that's higher up in this irrigation water management plan, we have shallow rooted, medium rooted, and deep rooted crops. So depending on what crop they have, we will fit one of these rooting depths. During the critical growing period, or the critical growth stage, we know that we need between 1 and 2 inches of water a week for that critical growth stage for crops in general. So we can see that as we change this number, so say that we use mulch, and so we do not need to apply as much water because we're keeping that water in the soil. So we're going to go on the low end of that 1 to 2 inches per week, and we're going to say 1 inch. And what this does is it spits out a number of the amount of water in inches that needs to be applied to shallow rooted crops, moderately rooted crops, and deep rooted crops, and how often that water needs to be applied. So if you're growing lettuce, which is shallow rooted, and you're in a sandy loam, and it's factoring in that moisture allowable deficiency percentage that we went over further in the irrigation water management plan, then it tells us we need to apply 0.14 inches of water every day. If we're growing a moderately deep crop, then we need to apply 0.57 inches, so almost 0.6 inches of water every 4 days, because that's water is deeper in the profile and it holds longer. And if we're growing a deep-rooted crop, then they need to apply 1.7 inches of water every 12 days. So think about how eye-opening and how helpful this could be to a grower. If you've ever worked with growers who irrigate, a lot of them just say, hey, every couple days I just turn it on and I let it go for a few hours, and then I do that again another 2 days, another 2 days. Think about if they're growing a deep-rooted crop like a tomato, which is a very common crop for almost all small-scale growers. If they're adding water every 2 inches and they're only, say, putting it on for a couple of hours, one, they're not getting to that deep depth that needs to be put on, and they're doing it too frequently. And so you'll get a tomato crop that grows really shallow roots. It doesn't get that deep tap root that it wants because it needs to stay in that zone where the water is being applied. This gives that grower the information that I need to put on a considerable amount of water, 1.7 inches of water, but I only need to do that 12 days. That's a game changer for folks. And it's as simple as just entering in this information. We can see how this changes, say that they don't mulch and they are putting on more of that top end of water of 2 inches every week. Then you can see that these numbers change. For shallow rooted crops, you have to apply water more than once a day. And this does happen for those of you, especially up north who are in those sandy soils. You know that those growers, sometimes they water twice a day. And that is because of the soil texture and putting on that amount of soil. Some of the things that they can do to improve that is to amend their soil with more organic matter and do a mulching. The rest of this, this data sheet is just kind of marking what you're planning with them. So the practices that you're planning. If they, we talked about our folks, they want to do a drip tape and they do want to do some of those micro sprinklers. They already have an irrigation pipeline, so they don't want that. Not interested in a reservoir or gutters for their high tunnel. Not interested in a pumping plant. So these are the irrigation related practices. What about some of our other plant conservation practices? They definitely are interested in mulching. They're going to do some cover crops out in that open field, and they're going to do some low tunnels. So this is just part of that planning process of looking at things as a system. How are they going to determine how much water they need? Our folks are going to go by that plant monitoring. They're going to go by that critical growth stage of 1 to 2 inches when their plants are at that critical growth stage. And then this section, the applied water volume rate, that you won't be able to complete this until they have their system in place. So it's okay to leave this blank. What this does is it tells them how much water is being applied by their system that they end up purchasing and implementing, what the efficiency of the system is. That's always rated on any irrigation system that you purchase. Usually it's around 85%, and that will tell them the time that they need to apply. So let me just show you what I mean by this. This will be helpful to a grower. It's not something from a planning perspective that we really need to worry about. But say that they come in, they're like, hey, I'm thinking about this drip system. And they know that it's going to put 0.26 inches an hour of water onto the soil. They know that it's an 85% efficiency. Then the time that it takes to apply this 2 inches of water up here is going to be 9 hours. They're going to have to run that system for 9 hours. If we just change this to that 1 inch, that changes this down here. And we know that it will take them 4.5 hours to apply that water based on the system that they bought. This is just meant to be helpful. Leave it blank if you don't know the information. Are they going to fertigate or chemigate? Yes or no? That's basically putting nutrients into the irrigation lines. So no, they do not plan on doing so. If they do, they have to do a backflow preventer. And this is just a reminder, if they're gonna fertigate, put that type of backflow prevention in there, at least have the conversation with them that they need to have that. Sign and date, and there it is. So that is irrigation water management and the template plan that we put together. I hope that this will be used with growers. Again, it is some really great information for them and can really help their operation be more successful and save them money too. And then from a conservation standpoint, conserve water and energy. So Terry, before I switch over to small scale resources, I am on my laptop, so I can't see the chat. Can you tell me if there's any questions?
I have not seen any questions. Ellie's just been sharing a lot of the links to the resources that you've been sharing, though.
Okay, excellent. Great. Thanks, Ellie. All right. Well, I am going to dive into our small scale resources, their location, and where the trainings that have occurred are. So we have been busy creating resources for small scale growers and doing trainings on those resources. And this PowerPoint, I hope to take just about 10 to 15 minutes to go through this. Really what I want to do is to provide this as a source of links so that if you say, hey, it's been a year and now I finally have an irrigation water management plan that I need to do. I remember there was a training on that, but I don't remember how to do the irrigation water management plan anymore because it's been a year. Where can I find that training so that I can go through and remember how to do that? That's the purpose of this presentation, is to give you those links and locations so that hopefully it can serve as a reference for you. So I'm just going to go through a few of the resources that we've created. I want to start by highlighting the main locations that we store information. There's the Field Office Technical Guide. For NRCS, that's our main location for storing technical documents and information related to conservation practices. We went to that website and saw how to just briefly kind of went over how to navigate that. NRCS also has a YouTube channel that we put a lot of our trainings on. And the reason that we do those is so that they're accessible to our partners who maybe don't have access to like SharePoint, which is also another place that we store a lot of our trainings. So what we've noticed, especially on the urban small scale front, is we have a lot of partners and those folks don't always have access to SharePoint. So we didn't want that to be a limitation. So most of our trainings are on our YouTube channel. Marion County SWCD also has a YouTube channel that they store some of their trainings on as well. And we're going to go through which of those trainings are where. The Marion County Soil and Water Conservation District Soil Health Guide is an amazing resource. You'll see throughout this presentation that a lot of the information is stored there. And then right here, our Urban Soil Health team, they have an amazing resource page as well, where you can find urban updates, all the recordings of the urban updates, past presentations, different resources. So just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to small scale and urban information. Okay, so I just briefly want to mention that we have updated our high tunnel implementation requirement. This is what we used to call our job sheet. We changed the name to implementation requirements, and that is located on our Field Office Technical Guide. So this is a little bit of an improvement, more than anything, just in its organization. It really does a good job now of defining what is a requirement, what's required in site selection, what are considerations, what's required for operation and maintenance, and divided out those categories. It's a little bit more clear than they were before. Irrigation water management plan for small farms and gardens, that template that we just went over. That's also in our Field Office Technical Guide, and this gives you the link to that as well as the pathway. And I did that purposefully, that way if that link breaks in the future, then you can still follow this pathway and get to our irrigation water management plan. We just did a training on that, but there is another training that was done back in December. It's funny, I have that date wrong on there. That should be December 7th, 2023, not in the future. And that is stored on our YouTube channel so that it's accessible for everyone. And there's the link to that. The irrigation water management plan training was done during a NRCS Thursday weekly programs and technology meeting. And so I added the link to where that is on SharePoint. And the only reason I doubled that information is some people love YouTube and some people just have access to that. Some people really love going to these recorded program technology meetings. So it's the exact same training, just it's stored in 2 different locations for you guys to decide how you want to get there. We have a low tunnel system practice overview sheet. So the low tunnel system is an interim practice, and it's, I think we're on year 3 of this being an interim practice. So it's a new practice specifically for urban and small scale farms and growers. Because it is a new practice, a lot of people had never heard, a lot of us in the conservation field had never heard of low tunnels before. Some growers might not be familiar with them. We put together this practice overview sheet just to kind of talk about the nuts and bolts of what is a low tunnel and what are the benefits to having it as a conservation practice. It's located on our field office technical guide as well. And the training for that is now on our YouTube channel, on NRCS's YouTube channel. Just like the irrigation water management training, it's also on SharePoint. So if you prefer to go to SharePoint versus YouTube, here's the link to where you can find that training. We have a wildlife plug calculator. So this is really, really cool. We have done wildlife plantings for a long time in the partnership. When we go into the small scale world, sometimes seeding of pollinator, native prairie, native grass stands is not really the best option because you're putting these areas next to your growing area, and anybody who has watched a native planting get established, it literally takes years and it gets very weedy while it's taking those years. You do not want a weedy patch next to your growing area. And so for our small farms and gardens, we have created this, or we offer this plug scenario where you can plant a little seedling, a plug every 1 square foot instead of doing a seeding. And there's a calculator for putting together those plug mixes like we do with our seeds, just with plugs instead. Brienne Lowe, our state biologist, did a great training on this, and it is also on YouTube. We have a cover crop tool for small farms and gardens. So Kevin Allison has trained on this during our programs and technical meeting, during urban updates, at different outreach events. So there is a lot of trainings on this. It's located on our field office technical guide and also on the Marion County SWCD soil health guide under the cover crop section. So that's where we can find that. And I put the link to, I specifically put the link to this training that's located on the Marion County SWCD YouTube channel, because even though Kevin has done a lot of different trainings on this tool, this is the most up-to-date training. So he's always improving it, making it better, tweaking it, fine-tuning it. This is the most up-to-date training. Also created in partnership with SWCD. Kevin's on cover crops for small farms and gardens. There's just a general cover crop overview, seeding methods for small farms and gardens, and termination methods for small farms and gardens. The best place to find this is on the Marion County SWCD Soil Health Guide. We'll get these on ePhotog or on the Field Office Technical Guide in the near future. We're just at the state office doing a little bit of, not just in the urban small farm world, but discipline-wide, some reorganization of tech notes and figuring out the best places to put those. And so we want to make that consistent. So before we upload more things onto the Field Office Technical Guide, we're figuring out our path forward. So Marion County SWCD is the place to find those right now. This is a quick view of the Marion County SWCD Soil Health Guide. This is a quick view of the Marion Guide. 3 different technical documents. County SWCD documents, but there's also cool resources on cover crop tables for small farm as to crop. We've put together a mulching practice overview document. So similar to the low tunnel practice overview document, it talks about the benefits of mulching on small farms and gardens, but then really kind of gets into the nitty-gritty of which mulches are best for which for what goals you're trying to accomplish. So it looks at the carbon nitrogen ratio, it looks at the depth of mulching, just a great document for us to learn about mulching on small farms and gardens, but also a very helpful document for growers as well. And then there is a mulching tool for small farms and gardens. And this tool is very helpful for growers because we can plug in the total area by square foot that they would like to mulch and what type of mulch they would like to use and the depth of that final mulch product, and it will spit out for them. Say they're using straw, it'll spit out for them based on that information that you put in, the number of bales, straw bales that they need to purchase. A really handy tool. And then it also serves as our implementation requirement or our job sheet for completing the practice through programs. And that is located on our Field Office Technical Guide and also on the Marion County SWCD Soil Health Guide. I believe it's in, I believe it's also in on Urban Soil Health's page in their resources. But Urban Soil Health resources page is the place to go for the training on mulching. So that was done during an Urban Updates, and that recording can be found at this link here. And likewise with some of the others, if you'd like to go to SharePoint for that training, that mulch training, here's the location. Also newly developed with Marion County SWCD and collaboration and input from a lot of different individuals and partners is the Indiana Nutrient Management Tool. So this is a really helpful tool for growers where they can input the crop that they're growing, the soil test levels based on a soil test report that they currently have, and it will give recommendations, or it will give the amount of fertilizer, amount of nutrients to apply based on those soil test levels. And then furthermore, it goes through and shows some of the nutrient sources that are commonly used by small farms and gardens, and they can input their selection of those different those nutrient inputs, and it will tell them by pounds and ounces how much of that nutrient needs to be applied for that crop. A really powerful tool and a really great training that was done on that can be found in the Urban Updates as well on Urban Soil Health's website. So those are a few of the resources that we've been looking at in a consolidated way to remember where the trainings are for those resources. And what we're currently working on is a pest management plan for small farms and gardens that'll look similar to the irrigation water management plan. So one of those templates, and it'll focus on tarping as a way to manage weed pest and reduce our tillage. And we're also working on a top 10 conservation practices for small farms and gardens to be able to give that to growers when they walk through your door or you're at different outreach events. And that's all I have. I really thank you all for your time. And I'd love to take any suggestions or comments or questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Cara. There's no questions in the chat, but there is gratitude for you sharing these with us. So thank you so much. I echo that gratitude. I appreciate you taking our time with today and going over those resources that are available for us. Very helpful.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Yeah. So next we are going to go into our regional updates. And we are going to start with the Northwest. So Marianne. Marianne, you're still muted.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Maya. Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us. This past month, I've been working on visiting different growers with some of our SWCDs in the area. I've been in site visits with Clinton County, Montgomery County, Boone County, Tippecanoe County. So I'm really grateful that to be part of what you are all working on and part of the conversation.
Marianne, we lost your audio
I've
again.
also been focusing on providing support for our working groups, so administrative support, and then as well as the site visits. Been working also on helping plan our Get There conference, which we have some information about later on the call. But we're getting ready to provide really good sessions for that conference, so I'm excited to see it come together. I'm also working on a conservation practices guide, so I'm working with a graphic designer to design a visual that represents some of these different practices that we're talking about, like irrigation, alley cropping, mulching, cover crops, etc. So it will be a resource that we can bring to events, or you can have at the office to provide to people that walk in. I also have some upcoming events. I will be at the Wabash River Fest in Lafayette this Saturday with Grow Local, which is an urban garden network in Lafayette, and we'll be sharing about gardening with soil health. This is something I've been doing for the past 2 years, and it seems to be a really good partnership to kind of show what we do in a way that makes sense with an urban setting and gardeners. I've also have a event coming up tomorrow with partnering with Benton County, SWCD, and other people in this area. And we're going to talk to a group of inner city kids from Chicago about careers in conservation, and going to share about gardening and soil. So those are some of the things I've been working on, and thank you for being here.
Great, thank you, Marianne. Next is the Northeast highlights. So that one's me. In the Northeast, there's been some quarterly meetings with the working group. St. Joe and Allen County both had quarterly meetings in the last month. And I'm really excited and thrilled that we have another county that is, or soil and water conservation district that is interested in having a soil health working group. Had a meeting with them just yesterday, and I'll be joining their board meeting this Thursday to get approval from the board to move forward. So hopefully by next month, we'll have an update of a new working group in the Northeast. As far as outreach, I did two more talks with Allen County Library on conservation gardening, supporting the Allen County Soil and Water with those talks. And those series of talks have now been completed for that area. I went out to Jack's Farm in Madison County in Anderson and did a talk on soil health to different veteran growers. That's the picture in the upper right-hand corner. We were out in the field. It was a beautiful location. They're doing a lot of really cool stuff out there, and it was really neat to have conversations with them and showed them how to do soil sampling. And it was interesting too because they set up an account with A&L Labs for the participants to go home and take soil samples and get those results. So it was neat to show them how to physically go home, get those results, and then how to read over them and use those results in constructive ways. And I also had a lot of fun last week with St. Joe County and going out to their 4-H fair. They had the cover crop root tubes, so that's the upper left-hand corner, and being able to show people how the different root structures grow in the soil with the cover crops. They had the soil tunnel, which you can see in the bottom left-hand corner. And it was a really neat way to kind of engage people and get their attention to come towards the tabling and all the different things that they had there. And then personally, I just wanted to share a picture of, in the bottom right-hand corner, I found some waterfalls in Northeast Indiana, went out there on a day off, and it was Salamone Reserve. There's a trail with a bunch of different waterfalls that you can explore. It was a lot of fun, and it was pretty magical, and it was my first time out there. So if you guys are in the Northeast region or visiting, I'd recommend Salamone, and their Three Falls Trail. It was gorgeous. All right, those are my updates. Next, we have the Southwest.
Hi, everybody. So in the Southwest, I've been doing a lot with the Pathway to Water Quality at the State Fair. The urban area, we are still working to get that together, ready for the fair time, which is August 2nd through the 18th, which that's pictured there in the top. We've got more things to plant, more things to build and construct. So it'll be a really good, thriving area. So make sure you stop by and visit and tell people to come out and visit at the fair. So we're excited for that. I've been delivering some cover crop seeds still to some districts to use for their county fairs. Those seem to be going over well and getting used a lot. The packaging, I think, really kind of invites people in and to have those conversations. So if you need some, reach out to your USH person to see if we still have some. We can get those to you. I've also been working with some working group activities, answering questions, about invoices, which there's note there that July 15th is the deadline for Q2 activities. So if you have questions as a working group, please reach out to me or your USH specialist, and we can get those answered and help you walk through any of that if you have any issues with like the invoicing, site visits, the technical assistance, or any events that you put on. So please let us know and we can help you with that. I also attended a fish monthly meeting, the Vermilion County Fair back in June, and a few NRCS and partner meetings. So it's been a busy June and start to July. So that's all I've got for the Southwest. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Casey. And next we have Megan.
Hey everybody. In the Southeast, I've been busy doing a lot of administrative work and helping working groups. And one of our new working groups that I want to welcome is the Soils Working Group out of Crawford and Orange County. They include both soil and water conservation districts, as well as the Hoosier Hills Master Gardeners and the Crawford County Public Library. So they've got a lot of momentum, and I'm really excited to see what they get done in this first year of their organization. And I wanted to thank the ISWCD for hosting their first virtual ICP training series. I got to partner with Cara Bergschneider, as you all know. She is such a great wealth of knowledge, and we talked a lot about urban and small scale conservation resources. So that was fabulous. And then I've got a couple of upcoming events in July and August. Really excited about our pollinator picnic, where we're going to be IDing beneficial insects and pollinators in the garden at the Optimist Club Butterfly Garden in Georgetown, down in Floyd County. And then we're going to start moving into a lot of fall practices. So cover crops in the garden in Madison on August 1st. And then on August 10th, we're going to be doing more cover crop secrets for garden health enrichment at the Wayne Soil and Water Conservation District's community garden. And then I just want to put a little bee in everyone's bonnet to remember to think like a farmer and be thinking 60 and 90 days ahead. We've got a lot of grant opportunities coming up with due dates in the late summer and into the fall. So be thinking about those project-based opportunities that you're interested in implementing, both on your own farms and on through your organizations. So thank you very much. And I will see you guys face to face at these events. Or, you know, some other training opportunity. So looking forward to that. Thanks.
Thanks, Megan. Next, we have Ellie.
Thank you for plugging grants. And that's a shout out that on our newsletter, we have a Get the Green section to try to feature opportunities for upcoming grants. So if you know of ones that you would like for us to feature, we will place them there, and let's think towards the future. So I just wanted to pop on here really quickly to give a shout out and a huge, enormous thank you to all of our soil and water conservation districts that gave their trust in our urban soil health program in 2024 and contributed a little bit of extra funding for our match to be able to allow us to do our good work. So these soil and water districts, in addition, gave contributions to us, and this goes a long way for us being able to then recontribute those dollars locally to pay local working groups, to do site visits, to do technical assistance, and to put on events in their community, and for us to reimburse for those expenses. And these dollars also go towards us doing soil testing by our specialists to go out and meet growers where they are, where there might not be an active working group, or that you just want us to come along and help fit that need in your community. So just a huge thank you, and that's all I have for now.
Great, thank you, Ellie. I would like to remind everybody that we have the Get the Dirt conference coming in on October 16th. It is a Wednesday, a full day at Hendricks County Fairgrounds. The QR code will take you to the link to register. It is all free. And we are finalizing the agenda for the day, so hopefully that'll be up within the next week so you guys can see all the wonderful speakers that we have and the great events that we have planned. So keep that date, get registered so you can stay connected, and we look forward to seeing you folks there. Lastly, we've got partner shares. So I'd love for you folks that are on the call still, Anyone have any great things that they'd like to share that are happening, any upcoming events, celebrations? I welcome you to turn on your camera, unmute yourself, or write it in the chat box. Ashley, I see your camera on. Would you like to share?
Yes, I'd be happy to share. So
Awesome.
I just wanted to share briefly that this fall in September, Purdue has partnered with the Land Connection out of Illinois to host the Midwest Mechanical Weed Control Field Day. And this event is really geared toward growers, whether they're a specialty crop grower, small and diversified farmer, or a large scale row crop farmer. But there are opportunities for ag professionals to learn a lot from this event. It's a really hands-on type of event where you'll see different types of weed management techniques demonstrated in the field. So we will have a tarping demonstration as well as some other types of like toolbars and equipment for small tractors, walk-behind tractors, and larger scale tractors. It's a really exciting event. I've been to a couple of these in the past. It's been hosted at Ohio State and Michigan State most recently over the last couple of years. And I was just really delighted that the Land Connection was interested in partnering with us here at Purdue. It'll be held at the Meigs Horticulture Research Farm, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. It's just south of Purdue's campus in Lafayette. And that'll be on September 11th. It's an event that runs roughly from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the cost to attend is $75. I did ask Ellie to put a notification of this event in the Get the Dirt newsletter, but I will drop a link in the chat for all of you in case that's something that you'd be interested in attending. The registration is open at this time, and we would be delighted if you would help spread the word on this as well. And while this event is really focused on mechanical weed control, and would be great for an organic grower, somebody who's interested in transitioning to organic to attend. It's also something that a conventional grower could learn from, especially if they're interested in reducing chemical inputs on their farm. So I'll drop some information in the chat. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll drop my email in there in case you don't have it already. And thank you for the opportunity to share.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Please, Sam, go for it.
So the community growers in Montgomery County, we're putting on our third annual garden walk in a couple Saturdays on the 20th. It'll be at the Crawfordsville Community Garden just south of town. People with different plots of the garden will be along the tour and talk about their garden plots, what they like to grow, what sort of techniques they use. And after that, we'll tour the rest of the farm owned by the Smith family.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Do you have a website or link for more information we can share out?
Yeah, there's a post on our district Facebook page, as well as our community growers Facebook page.
Okay. Thank you. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Thanks.
Any other partner shares? Going once, going twice. Well, I really appreciate those that have shared. And if you guys have any other things that you'd like us to share in our newsletter, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to include it in our monthly newsletter. As always, we would like just for you guys to follow us on social media, check out our website, sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already. Our next urban updates will be August 13th, and we will have Jamie from A&L Labs coming and talking about some of the techie side of the lab testing and some of their different resources that they have available from that soil testing side. So we hope you're able to make it. As always, if you have any questions, let us know, and we look forward to seeing you the next month. Take care, folks.